You think it's recording?
It says it at the top.
All right, it is recording now?
It says at the top of my my phone, it says recording.
Good.
It says that on my screen.
All right. So if it happens not to, I'll just, I guess, redo it at some point. Okay. I hope as I navigate, I'll be able to show you some things on the screen as I talk. But for the benefit of those not with us, this is January 11th, 2016 at 7:30 in the evening. This is our 702 EDLS class on operations module, facilities and operations. And we have 13 in our class. And we see Adam is joining us. Hey, Adam. So what I'd like to do is talk a little bit about the function of planning. And that's why I said if you've got your book, the Guthrie text, Chapter 4 does a really good job on this concept of planning. So I want to talk about that. And then I want to show you some examples of planning documents. And I just loaded on your Blackboard week 5, about 5 minutes ago, a document called Roadmap of Needs. And then a second document called an analysis of the Roadmap of Needs. Roadmap of Needs is a document created by the Public School Forum, same group that did your finance report, and also in partnership with the North Carolina Center for After School Programs. And it's a good example of the importance of data, so that's why I'm using that. But so we'll look at the roadmap of need and the analysis of the roadmap of need. Also, if we get time, and I'm going to try to do all this in about 30 to 35 minutes, so we'll do what we can. I'll also show you some planning documents from Burke County regarding population studies. A big part of our course is facilities and construction, or at least about 25% of it. And obviously you have to have good information if you're going to convince, first of all, the public you need to build a new school. And obviously if you're going to be good stewards of finances, you don't want to build more than you need or less than you need. And if you don't need it, you don't want to build at all. So we're going to look at the importance of data that certain government entities or certain private entities can give you to help load the case for school construction. So that's sort of where we're heading. But we're going to start with the concept of planning. Now, all of you are leaders in your school, and you already understand this notion of strategic planning, of how extremely important that is. And Chapter 4 of Guthrie talks a lot about that. I'm assuming that you have heard for years now the concept of SMART goals. You probably remember and have it memorized that SMART stands for specific, measurable, achievable, results-oriented, and time-bound or timely. In terms of when you establish goals, if they're not specific, they are of little value to you. So this chapter goes into this notion of strategic planning. Stratagem is a Greek word. That's where the notion of strategy comes from. All of you, I think, would agree that if you don't plan, if you fail to plan, there's an old saying: if you fail to plan, then you plan to fail. Now, none of us go into a job, I don't think, with the goal of I hope I fail. But I think probably all of us have experienced this notion. I did not plan well enough, and now after the smoke clears, it's obvious to me that better planning would have helped save situations from occurring. So strategic planning is extremely important in terms of finance, and it's extremely important in terms of your school programming, all facets of your school programming. Obviously, it's not enough just to list goals, but you have to have a vehicle or strategies as how you're going to attack and achieve those goals. So Guthrie does a pretty good job about this notion of planning on page 64. He talks about effective planning depends on the addition of three things, or presence of three things: specific organizational goals, a capacity for objective independent judgment. And in your leadership roles, you would know how important that is. You have certain outliers that have preconceived notions, hidden agendas, So a commitment to objective, independent judgment is important. And then the third thing they talk about is technical expertise. On your planning committees, you want people that know something. They have skills. They have much to offer. You don't want the same kind of people sitting around the table. You want strengths in different areas, but you want people that write well, that speak well, that have the technical knowledge, that know the financial technical knowledge, the computers, the curriculum, all those pieces. You need those kind of people around the table. So diversity is important. Having people that are different personality types, all those things are important to creating a very good team for you. Guthrie talks about the need to make your goals very explicit, and that's a word I use a lot in the work that I do for Gardner Webb, especially with dissertations. Is when you speak very clearly, or when you write very clearly and explicitly. Don't imply, be explicit. State very clearly, specifically what you're talking about. So in reference to goals and planning, strategic planning, it is of little value if you don't have extremely explicit statements that form your goals and your strategy. So he makes that argument very quickly. He says in the absence of explicit ends or strategic goals, it's not possible to undertake a complete planning effort. At a minimum, strategic goals are needed by an organization as criteria by which to determine the degree of currently succeeding in your mission or vision or missions. It gives you targets to shoot at, basically, and then a focus or foci around which to organize personnel and incentives. When you do strategic planning, you're looking at the ends to be pursued. What am I trying to accomplish? And you ask basic questions like, who will pay, who will benefit, who will participate? If you're a good planner, you will keep those things in mind and you will involve those people on your team. As leaders, you also know that at times you have to have political compromise when you meet with these folks and when you try to determine what is important. However, Guthrie gives you a caution on page 66, extremely important, and he says this political compromise may necessitate multiple or vaguely worded agendas for an organization. But notice what he says after that. This is at once a noble and an empty statement. In other words, if you try to please too many people and you water down that explicit goal to something that is very, very bland, and he gives the example somewhere in here about, here he says, the purpose of our school district is to educate the whole child. Well, what does that mean? What does that say? It's so broad and global that you don't have any way to measure it unless you get very specific. So while you have to guard against political sabotage and you have to honor those different players, you cannot shy away from setting very, very clear goals. And so that's the point that he's making. He talks about three areas: intergovernmental complexity. We talked about naivety. If you're naive and don't understand the jungle that you're working in, sometimes that's going to bite you. So you have to understand how complex these relationships are with your school district, your board of commissioners, your various city and county governments. That's a complexity that years ago was not near as hard to navigate. It's much harder now. And then the notion of objectivity he talks about, and then this notion of technical sophistication. We're very detailed, data-driven these days, so it's not enough just to know things around the fringes, but you have to know extremely deep levels of detail when you're trying to do a good plan. So have those right people around the table that are experts in their areas. And let me mention this: conflict is something that I doubt that many of us enjoy, but we have a mistaken view of conflict sometimes. It is necessary and it's valuable to have those people around the table that you don't necessarily always agree with, because it forces you to think differently and to consider other avenues of doing things. So conflict does not have to be viewed as a bad thing. Now, obviously, if you have certain people that's their goal in life to always be in conflict and always disagree, then that can slow you down. But properly viewed, you can use those people to an advantage of a more thorough look and examination of the problems that you're trying to solve. So keep that in mind. Conflict is not necessarily a bad thing. It forces people to consider lots of views and to come together, compromise, and create together the best solution to things. Then Guthrie talks about this when you're planning. It becomes extremely important to think about this notion of diversity. We're in a different time and age. Our communities have shifted and changed, and so diversity brings with itself challenges. Sometimes it's population challenges. A lot of times it's the curriculum challenges in terms of perhaps English as second language, different cultures, just understanding people. So he brings that up. We'll talk about population projections some. He uses that as an example. All this is around this notion of planning. If you're not doing good planning in terms of your finances and what you need to purchase, and even to the point of capital and buildings and facilities, then you're going to get caught very ill prepared, and you'll pay a large price in the end. So take time to glance over chapter 4. Obviously, in your roles, you know the value of planning. You learn by now that if it's too vague or broad or general, it's of little value. We all have plans that have sat on the shelf at times. We did a good job, we created it, but we put it in a notebook, and if we're not careful, we forget about it. So the best planning, the best strategic planning are those plans that you have broad input. They're very, very clear, just like the SMART goal acronym we talked about: specific, measurable, achievable, results-oriented, and timely. If you create that kind of plan, the time you invest will pay huge dividends down the road. So words of wisdom for chapter 4. So I wanted to make sure we started looking at planning. Now, I'm going to try to pull a document up. I hope this works. I have no clue if this works.
Do you have any advice when it comes to planning? If you have a plan in place, getting the board on board with that?
The best, if you have a current document and they didn't help create it, is that what you're asking?
Well, no, I guess as boards change and there's a transition period of certain board members getting off of the board, and then you have new board members and they have a different agenda, so to speak.
What we always did was an annual planning retreat.
Okay.
Usually around January, and we would inundate them with all the kinds of documents and data, and educate them extremely clearly about what we were trying to accomplish. Can y'all see my screen right now?
No.
No.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. You see this back here? Can you see that? You don't see anything else besides us. Let me hit this. Are you still there?
We're here.
Okay. Where are you?
There you are.
Still there?
You're
Okay.
there you
Actually,
go.
what I've got is the wrong document, but I was going to use this too. You can see me and you can see the document, right?
Yeah.
Woohoo! Success. Are you proud of me?
Yeah.
You got almost a 61-year-old dinosaur that's making his way.
You need to quit making light of what you're doing for us.
You're kind. You're very kind. There's no need for me to try to bluff it. Y'all would see it pretty quick. Are y'all familiar at all with the roadmap of need? What this document here is an analysis of the first document that I thought I was going to show you. let's see, how do I drive this thing here? Okay. Can you hear me?
Mhm.
Ms. Deckant, can you hear me? Okay. This is a document created, as I said earlier, by the Public School Forum. And I've got 7:47, so I'm watching my watch. I'm gonna try to be kind and not put you through too much. You see I got a message that my internet connection is unstable. I hope that doesn't mean much. But the Public School Forum and the North Carolina Center for After School Programs create this document together. And what it looks at is 20 different behaviors around 4 areas. The areas are health, youth behavior and safety, education, and economic development. And remember the public school finance report that we looked at, and you're doing a comparison of 4 counties. This gives you county by county indicators regarding 20 different things, such as teen pregnancy, child fatality rates, those kind of things. So this group here has taken the report and sort of massaged the data and come up with some summaries about it. So if I can get out of this and go back to the actual report, that's what I want to do. But they analyzed the report here. So let me just roll through that. And they looked at all the counties, and they actually do a quartile ranking. And here they looked at actually achievement scores. So you can see the different counties. Are you seeing that screen?
Mhm.
So it's really, here's the whole reason I'm showing you this. If we're going to do good strategic planning around whatever part of the schooling we're talking about, whether it's curriculum or finances or new construction or cafeteria food or whatever, then you have to have data. Data is king. Data drives our decisions. Intuition is important, and it's nice to be able to say, well, I just kind of feel this way. But in the day and age we live, you've got to go far beyond feelings, and you've got to have data to support, especially what you think are your weaknesses for your children, because then you begin to create a plan of attack to make those things better. Well, part of your plan of attack is having the true reality. You know, what is the reality of my county or my city? What are we dealing with? What is the child fatality rate? What is the teenage pregnancy rate? What is the dropout rate? All those things that you would need to have as a basis of, first of all, as argument. Here's what our system needs to do, and here is why. So this group looks at the data and they analyze it. So it's a good companion document to the actual roadmap of need study that they give you. All right, here are the behaviors that you see across the top. I don't know if you can read them, but remember there's 4 areas and there's 20 descriptors: teen pregnancy, number of physicians, child fatality, child food insecurity, child obesity, juvenile delinquency, short-term suspension, juvenile detention, children in DSS custody, child abuse and neglect, graduation rate. I can get that bigger, can I? Okay. 3rd grade reading EOG, math EOC proficiency, ACT scores, AMO targets, median household income, children living in poverty, unemployment rate, adults with at least a bachelor's degree, children living in single parent households, so on and so forth. So that's good data. I would encourage you, when you look at the 4 counties you picked for the finance study, if you want some information to help you talk about those counties, this is great information here. It's really one of the reasons I'm showing it to you. Any questions so far? And they're down the side are the descriptors again. Remember, there's 20 of them, and they're around health, youth behavior and safety, economic development, and education. great, great information. Now, I'm going to try to go to another document and not lose you forever. If I lose you, it was fun. Let's see here. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. I don't know how to find you back. Need shared. Okay, am I where I need to be?
Yes.
Screen sharing is stopped as the share window is closed. What does that mean?
I don't know, but we can see roadmap of need 2000.
Okay, so there, can you see my little hand moving? Right? They're the 4 big areas. And this will come out probably about March. The new one will come out. So we'll have a new one before we finish the class. Okay. Let me just point out a couple things before this started in 2010. Again, there's 20 indicators. It's across 4 domains: health, youth behavior and safety, education, economic development. They talk about their methodology. All the indicators are weighted equally. You can see how important some of this information will be. Really good to have when you're dealing with your boards, trying to educate them and trying to tell them, here's why we need more preschool education, or here's why in our high school 9th grade health curriculum we need more on sex education, or whatever it might be, because of our teen pregnancy rate, or any number of things that you would want to argue. So again, the counties are ranked. They're the different factors regarding health, and then they roll through more health data: teen pregnancy, number of physicians per 10,000 people, child fatality rates, food insecurity. I think has to do with the like lack of availability of fresh fruits and vegetables. Youth behavior and safety. Some of you may be familiar with juvenile crime prevention councils. A lot of this data comes from folks like that, so it's important to know, especially with your middle school and high school programs. So again, the purpose of showing you this is to again go back to this notion of good planning requires good data and good documents. So I wanted, and it's on your Blackboard, week 5. I just loaded 2 more pieces that you're seeing here. There's education, obviously graduation rate. Then there's your testing, 3rd grade math and reading, ACT, annual measurable objectives targets, and average of education rankings. And then they do an overall ranking somewhere, I think. Well, here's economic development. It goes into household income, number of single parents, households, those kind of things. Good stuff, especially, again, when you're looking at those 4 counties you picked in terms of making a comparison. That'll work real well. Oh, here's what I was looking for. Here's an overall data of everything. And then they do, I think they do a ranking. Yeah, overall ranking. So I want you to notice this. Orange County, remember what's in Orange County? Chapel Hill, right? Look at the last one. Robeson County, 4th quartile, highly impoverished, right? So this is good comparative data with what you're looking at in the public school forum finance report that you're working on. And then notice here they do quartiles of need, just like the public school forum did. And the color code, there's the quartiles. See that? So especially if you're North Carolina folks, and for you South Carolina folks, I have started pulling together some data from South Carolina, so you won't be the Lone Ranger forever. Okay. All right. It's about 3 minutes to 8, so give me about 5 more minutes, and then we'll wrap up. If I can get out of this. Hey. You cannot minimize Zoom. Okay. Okay. I won't do that. How did I get to my document again? Okay, how about that? Let's see. You have loaded I think I've loaded this for you. How do I get this to scroll?
We don't see it yet.
Do you see my documents? You don't, do you?
Not yet.
Okay. Your free meeting will end in 10 minutes. Y'all see that?
Yeah.
Okay. I guess I better start finishing up. I thought I had the Gardner Webb stuff. Maybe I don't. Help. What I'll talk about at another time is I have a document. Western Piedmont Council of Government did a study for Burke County schools, and in that study they looked at their growth patterns, population patterns around each of their school districts, each elementary school, middle school, and high school, and they began to project the amount of growth that would occur for the next 20 years. And so if I could get this to scroll, I was going to show you what that is. I don't know how I did it, but I'll do that in class if I don't get back to it later. And then there's also a Western Piedmont census report that I was going to show you in terms of how populations grow. Again, all the points here tonight, or if we're going to do good planning, then we need to have good data, good documents to plan with. So I think I'll end it there. We'll get we survive maybe, and I'll have weird. Now let me say this: next week I won't be available on Thursday night, so I'll either do a pre-tape thing or we won't have it. But you'll be given an email if I do something pre-tape. Any questions about anything? Any of your assignments? Everything going okay there?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, folks, I appreciate your time. I'm proud of you. I know you're busy, and I appreciate your intentionality and joining. And now my goal will be to get this thing loaded to YouTube and linked to something so everybody else can see it.
Start
Y'all
yourself.
take care. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot.